built for vital work, no sense in getting hurt. So this challenge I shirk, no sense in getting hurt. I'm still unstoppable, my legend's laudable. This world is volatile, deadly, no impossible. I could face all this and more, that's what I was made for. No matter what's in store, what else was I made for? What else was I made for? What else was I made for?
Hello, 1 Million Musicals audience. Welcome to another episode of Intermission, where we take a moment in between shows to interview a member of our extremely talented cast. My name is Jacob Ben Shmuel. I am the co-creator of the podcast and the showrunner, and I have with me a very dear friend of mine who I'm very excited to talk to. His name is Taylor Fagans. He is a songwriter, an actor, and a singer whose original song, We Need More, recently won the top prize at the 35th American Songwriter Contest. And you can hear Taylor's voice as the planetary rover Immortal in our latest musical, Saving Legacy. Hi, Taylor.
Hello.
I'm so happy to have you on. This is awesome.
I'm really excited to be on this podcast. I like podcasts.
Well, I mean, you are kind of like one of the old guard of this podcast because you've been in 2 episodes now, 3 if you count the artist cabaret.
Yes.
Which you provided an absolutely beautiful piece for that as well, called Music.
Yes.
And if anyone in this audience has not listened to that artist cabaret, you should go listen to it right after this episode, because Taylor's piece is really lovely.
Oh, listen to it.
How are you doing, Taylor?
I'm doing pretty good, you know. I feel like I've been writing so much since doing the artist cabaret. I feel like I've spent most of my time just like sticking my head in my computer and just like creating things and literally sticking my head. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, other than that, I'm doing pretty solid. I'm pretty solid.
I mean, I feel you. That's like with this project, that's me too. Like every month I gotta be writing something new because we gotta get something out.
I feel like I honestly don't know how you do it, because I personally feel like when I write, I can only focus for maybe an hour to 2 hours tops. And then I'm like, okay, I need to play a video game, watch 3 episodes of Breaking Bad, do a puzzle, and then get a snack, maybe take a nap, call my mom, and then I'll feel like writing again. Like that, it's a whole, I can't just sit and write. And I will say though, for 1 to 2 hours, I do get a lot done.
Yeah.
But Lord help me, does it take me forever to stay focused?
I feel that. I mean, I have ADHD, so focus has always been a little hard for me, but I find that if I get really into something, like if I get other distractions out of the way and I just sit down and really start working on something, I can work on it for hours and like not realize. Like, sometimes that happens when I'm editing one of the musicals. Like I'll like sit down, really get focused, and suddenly it's 4 hours later.
Exactly. Like, it's like, I've been doing this forever.
So Taylor, obviously I know you very well. We've known each other for many years. I consider you a dear friend, but many folks in our audience do not know you or know much about you. So please give them, a little brief history of yourself.
Yeah, brief history. Okay. Where to start? I'm from California. Born and raised. I love it, except I hate hot places, so I don't love it. But I grew up in California, disdaining the sun, but loving everything else about it. Went to school there, fell in love with writing. Oh, I take that back. Fell in love with singing before I fell in love with writing. Figured out I was a singer when I was 9 years old. When I wanted to sing Celine Dion's "The Prayer" 24/7. Yeah, I was like, this is it. Like, this is the song that everyone's singing right now. And I was like 9. Which is a very strange selection.
You were really on top of it.
Yeah, I was on the game. I was like, this is it.
You were on the pulse.
Yeah. And then, yeah, what? So I was singing around that age, and then I think around high school is when I started really getting into writing. It was music, songs, poetry, literally anything I could think of. And then I went to college and I actually decided to be a writer after having after going to college to be an actor. I went to UC Irvine in California to be an actor, which is where we met. Get lit,
yes.
Me and Jacob.
I feel like half of the 1 Million Musicals team are
UC Irvine.
UC Irvine alums.
Yeah, for real. It's pretty crazy actually. Like every time I see someone's name, it's like, oh, you. And I'm like, oh, you. Like I saw you on campus. Or like we had like half of like 2 years straight together. Like, I love you. But yeah, so yeah, UC Irvine when as an actor, I was really gung-ho about it, right? I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be an actor, I'm gonna do this thing, I'm gonna be a musical theater. And then I remember it was me and you, Jacob, we went to the New York satellite program.
Yes.
And we did the 4 at 15 musicals. And we were a boy band.
Yes, Dustin Gavin's PI.
Dustin Gavin's PI. Come on, a boy band detective agency. Like we were a boy band private investigator group.
Yes.
And we were all Dustin Gavin.
Very weird and good idea.
Yeah, I kind of loved it. It was pretty amazing. And so I'm sorry, was Kaylin in that too?
Yes.
No, she was.
Yes.
She was.
She was like, was she the person who hired us?
She was.
I'm pretty sure.
Jacob.
That's wild. Wow.
Come
what
on.
What a blast from the past. Look at that.
Pretty amazing.
It's all coming together.
Yeah. It's all coming. This is all an endeavor to bring back Dustin Gavin's PI. At some point, it's gonna happen. But yeah, so we were in that show, right? And I remember doing rehearsal for that show one day. And I was like, we were dancing and we were singing. And I was like, I want to write a 15-minute musical. Like I was like, wait a minute. I write things and we're just doing this. I could just write this. Like I could write I could be a part of this, like for real. And I said, why am I just acting? I could act and I could write. So I decided to be a writer. And I remember coming back and bless the hearts of our musical theater professors because they were expecting me to like come back after New York and be like gung-ho about musical theater. And I was like not auditioning for anything. I was like, no. I remember getting text messages like, Taylor, where are you? Auditions are today. And I said, I'm at home. And they're like, excuse me? Like, what? That was fun. That was really fun. So I remember that conversation with everyone. But
of course.
Yeah, but I also remember having a really awesome conversation with Miranda Delaney, such a great teacher at UCI. She had a conversation with me and she said, you know what? Like, you should do what you want to do, but also, like, if it's important, act in the show. I was like, okay. So I ended up doing a musical.
Yes.
Like my last musical, Parade, with you and
yeah.
Kaylin.
And Kaylin. That's right.
Lit. We just stay together, right? It's like we did Dustin Gavin's. We were like, we're never leaving. But yeah, so we did Parade, but that was like that was the only big show I did for college. And then I moved to New York. And I was like, I'm just gonna go. And yeah, since then I really tried to stick with writing. I did your musical it was reading. It was reading. It was stage reading of Brad Knows Nothing. One of the latest experiences of my life. In which I was a robot, so
yeah, I know.
You know.
I was gonna say, like, we're getting a little in the weeds, which I think is fantastic. But when Alan and I wrote Saving Legacy, we weren't sure who we wanted to play Immortal, but we knew it needed to be someone who had like a kick-ass pop voice.
Yeah.
And then it like got into my brain. I was like, oh, what about Taylor? And Alan was like, oh, that's so exciting. But then he was like, is Taylor going to think we're only typecasting him as robots? Because the last show he was in with us, Brad Knows Nothing, he played a robot, which is hilarious. But I think the very, very different robots, very different types of characters.
Very different.
Do you remember like the first musical theater piece that you wrote?
Yes, I do. I wrote, oh my goodness. It was a short 1-act musical based on The Giving Tree.
Ah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because when we came back from New York Satellite, Marana Delaney was like, let's do this little like theater writing workshop, because so many of us wanted to write. I wasn't the only one. I'm now realizing I was not the only one who came out wanting to
There was
write.
a bunch of us who were, you're right, who came back and wanted to write. And so she set up the class, the like post NYSP class. She was like, whoever wants to come can come in, and you're just going to be writing stuff. That's right. You did. You wrote a Giving Tree musical. I am remembering this.
Yeah. And I loved that musical with my heart and soul. Excuse me. Wait, give me a second. I'm just burping.
Oh, pause for technical difficulties.
Pause technical. No. I loved that show, that little Giving Tree musical, with all my heart and soul. And I remember talking to Marana about it, and she went, if you love it, like, you should really pursue trying to get the rights. I emailed the people who had the rights to the book. Why did they literally go, no, like, you cannot produce this musical? And I was like, but it's for, and full disclosure, this email I sent them was like, it's for a class. I just want to know, like, I want to film it. So like, I don't want to like get in trouble. Is it okay if I film it? I'm not making any money. And they're like, you are not allowed to do any of this. And I got so desperate, I sent them the script, and I was like, it's good, read it. And they never responded to me after that. I'm like, wrong move, Taylor. You got a little desperate.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That's the first thing I ever wrote.
Savage. That is savage of the estate of Shel Silverstein.
Like,
that
come
is
on. I'm a little college kid writing a little musical. Just let me have it.
That's really funny.
It was very funny.
I think you and I had talked about it before we graduated, that you were like, oh, I think I'm doing the writing thing. And what were your steps when you got out to New York? Like, how did you try to make this happen?
Yeah, I moved to New York with like all my graduation money. And I was like, I remember living in an Airbnb in Astoria. No apartment yet. It was very tiny. It's a bad idea. Don't move to New York and move into an Airbnb. Like, it's not a thing. Fridge didn't work. It was a whole thing. Anyway.
Oh boy.
But I remember moving there with like a little bit of money and being like, I'm going to find an apartment with some friends, and then I'm going to finish a musical. Like, that was like my whole first step, was like, I'm just going to do the thing and write the musical and finish it. And so I had this musical that I was developing. Called Living, that I had started in college, my senior year of college, I had started writing the musical. And so it was literally like a play idea about 3 students who struggle with depression, and then like 4 songs. That was the whole story.
Okay.
And I was like, I can put the songs in there and it's musical. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. And so I moved to New York, and I eventually got an apartment, and every day I went to Ground Central Coffee in New York. I love this place, and I attest to it because in that coffee shop, every single day I sat in the same chair and I wrote my musical on my computer, and I finished it in like maybe 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah. And I did it, and I said, great, it's done. Now what? Like, that was just step 1, right? And so I think a little later on, or maybe somewhere around that time, is when I was in Brad Knows Nothing. So I was like really taking in like, okay, workshop ? Like, because that's what y'all were doing.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay. And then I went to Emma Delaney, Mirana's daughter, and talked to her and was like, what would you do if you just finished a musical? And she said, do a living room reading. Like, you have an apartment, you have friends who sing and are great actors, read the script. So we did. And I got a bunch of friends together in my living room, and we read it. I sang all the songs. I played one of the roles, and we read it. And everybody took notes on how they felt about it. And then they told me how they felt about it, and I wrote down notes based on their feedback. And then I edited the whole thing with one of my friends, Mackenzie Zakour.
There you go.
Yeah.
Another UC Irvine.
UC Irvine. And so she was working at a theater in California where she had to read new plays every day. So I was like, read mine. And she sure did. And so, yeah, that was like, it was like, finish the thing, then hear the thing, and then change the thing. And so I changed it. I edited, I reviewed it. I did some edits. I shifted what needed to be shifted. And then honestly, I got an opportunity to be in Hairspray at Oregon Shakespeare Festival and left. So that kind of like stopped a lot of things. I was like, oh, I'm acting now. Okay. And I went to the theater, but the cool thing about that opportunity was Oregon Shakespeare Festival is a great theater to
It is an incredible theater just in general. Like,
how
cool you got to do that.
Yeah, right? It was, and I didn't know how big it was. Like, my roommates are actors, but at least the roommate I had before and then the one I still have, they were both actors, and they're like, you got an offer at Oregon Shakespeare? And I'm like, yes. Is that like new? I don't understand. It's in Oregon. What's in Oregon but Portland? Like, they didn't understand that I didn't understand. I had no idea. So I was like, I don't know if I should take it. They're like, go. You don't know what you're talking about.
You must.
Exactly.
Take this job.
Could you imagine me being like, Oregon Shakespeare Festival, bye. I'm actually going to keep working at Jamba
I'm going to keep living in my apartment with lots of roommates and work on my musical.
Exactly.
That feels like the best choice. No, I mean,
like, I'm going to say no.
Okay, but so you were saying that's a great place to like workshop stuff.
Yes. I went there, and the thing is, at Oregon Shakespeare Festival, people are there on contract for like the whole year, basically.
Yeah.
So nobody has anything to do. So, like, you do the same, you do Hairspray over 2 months, it doesn't change. Like,
yeah.
You just do and you know better than I do.
Well, I was going to say.
Yeah, Book of Mormon.
With the tour, I mean, take that and explode it out to 2.5 years. It's like people, it was the same exact thing on the tour where I'm assuming you're going with this is like people helped you work on it and you did workshops and stuff. Yes. Same stuff as when I was on tour. Like everyone is like, you have a project? I can sing other lines? Dear God, please.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Like, no one wants to sing Run and Tell That every day. At some point, you're like, we get it. We get it. The blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice. Like, I get it. I understand.
Oh, boy.
So then at some point, I'm like, y'all want to sing my musical? And everyone's like, please. As long as there's no hairspray in it, I'm good. Like,
That's
all that
fantastic.
matters. So yeah, I workshopped my musical twice in the span of 10 months, which is a long
Wow.
time.
Yeah.
But twice. I did 2 readings of it. And both times, the first time I didn't sing any music. I just let them read it. And I just had them read the first act.
Okay.
And they were like, this is good. And I was like, great, okay,
Nice.
that's just the first act. We read the second act. And I laugh because we read the full show, the second reading. And the first act, everyone thought it was good. The second act, people are falling asleep. And I'm like, oh no. It's one of those issues where you're like, oh, this is good until it's not, and it's always not after intermission.
It needs work. You know,
Yeah.
it's stuff you gotta. I get that.
Yeah. So that's when I went, okay, it's not ready. But the kicker was at the end of the musical, everybody was like, this is really good, and the music is really catchy. And I went, oh. So it's not so much the musical is bad. I just, as a writer, have certain aspects of my life, of my career that I need to work on, like writing a good story. I think, and it's funny because I grew up singing first.
Yeah.
And then I wrote music first. So like these are the things that I know how to do more than like say write a 1-act play. Like I didn't know how to do that before. So the next step for me was, okay, I'm going to work on this musical on my own, move back to New York. Pandemic happened, so I had no choice but to work on this musical.
Right.
And then I don't know if it's cool, but this interesting thing happened, which is, I was stuck in my apartment and I had nothing to do. So I put the musical aside and started just writing plays.
Oh.
Yeah. Because I was like, if I don't know how to write a story, and that's the biggest problem with my musical, what if I just take the music out and just try writing a show with no music? So I tried to write plays. I basically got nowhere for like a long time. And then, with the Black Lives Matter movement like hitting its like basic peak, right?
Yeah.
And all of the tragic deaths in 2020, I wrote the song We Need More.
Ahmaud Arbery, you went for a run, 'cause you probably felt free. Ahmaud Arbery, your run had an end that nobody could see. Little black boys don't run outside or play with water guns at night. They run away from red and white, blue light. Little black boys don't go to stores or use their pockets anymore. Can someone tell them what they're living for? They want more.
The interesting thing is something clicked in me when I wrote that I was like, I know exactly what to write about in a play. And then I started writing plays and like finishing them. And so then I wrote 2 plays. And so now I was in an online virtual group with OSF and some writers there. It was an OSF writers group, and it was just a couple of us, a handful of us, and we were just writing and reading them for each other. Like we weren't doing anything past that. And I wrote the play, my first play that I've ever finished, in a week, and I sent it to them. and I was like, can we read this? And we read it, and people were like, this is really good. And I was like, okay, I know how to write a story. Like, that was such a big achievement for me.
That's got to be so gratifying, like especially coming out of such a horrible tragedy and like a collective tragedy. I mean,
Yes.
obviously more so for you and folks in your community. Like that's like that was a traumatic time, you know, last summer and through the rest of last year. So there's got to be something, I would imagine, like fulfilling about being able to pull out of that a piece of art that is like working and is beautiful. And
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it really is. It really was pretty fulfilling, because I think what ended up happening with that first play, for context, I guess, the play is called A Song, and I really need to rethink my titles.
I was gonna say, because the piece that you wrote for the cabaret is called Music, which was so confusing whenever I was trying to edit anything. Because like I went in and I was like, Music by Taylor Fagans. I was like, oh, okay, so this is gonna be like the sheet music. And I click on it, it's a script. I'm like, what? Okay.
Yeah. And this is for everybody in the world who's listened to this podcast. If you ever hire me, you make the title. Because I can't. So I'm gonna start putting that like in contracts. Like, Taylor Fagans will not by any means make the title, because he can't.
So you wrote a play called A Song. Is that correct?
It's correct.
Excellent. Okay.
And it was about we need more. But more specifically, it was about my experience with how I even got to writing the song. And then on top of that, it was about my experience with the pandemic. It was about my experience with the Black Lives Matter movement. It was about my experience with my personal mental health, and then reacting to my family members' mental health. It was like it was basically an autobiographical play. And I kind of sat there and I went, okay, this is good, but this is not about me. This is about everybody. And so then I shifted it a lot. But yeah, it ended up being a play with music, which was not the goal. That was not the goal at all. Because like I said before, I was trying to write a good story.
Well,
and I did.
When you write a play called A Song, you kind of expect that there's going to be a song in it.
There's at least one.
I will say though, like it's I have a lot of trouble as a writer with like autobiographical stuff. I have a lot of it's really hard for me to write songs that are personal. It like takes a lot out of me. It's so much easier for me to just make a story about some characters and like imagine how they feel about things. Yeah. So I just find that really cool and really impressive, because you're that is your first instinct and that it's like easy for you. I'm like, I wish I had that skill.
Yo, no, I feel you. I think honestly, most of that came from when I started writing in high school. I would write songs because it was easier for me than writing in a journal. And I had 2 journals that were mostly empty. Because I was like, I don't know. And maybe that's, contributes to the fact that it was hard for me to write a good story, because I couldn't even like just say what I wanted to say. I had to do it through music. So I eventually, and for anybody who, please listen to the cabaret, because that is also autobiographical. It is, but it isn't. I love my grandma. She's still alive. But yeah, like to an extent, like it's what happens to me, that character happened. Yeah. Like my grandma taught me how to play the piano.
Right.
And so I just realized, like, this is how I express myself. Like, this is how I say what I need to say through music. Yeah. So that's how it became so second nature, honestly. And it was just hard for me to crack that through words.
Hey, audience members. This is 1MM's Chief Audio Engineer, Travis Cook Johnson, dropping in to remind you that this is the condensed version of this intermission. If you're interested in hearing the full version, where Jacob and Taylor talk about TikTok musicals and a number of other projects they've been involved in, then please consider checking out our Patreon, where you can find the full version of this interview as well as a number of other bonus items. That's patreon.com/1millionmusicals. Now back to the intermission.
I also have a hope that when theater is back, because it's had this time, in the next couple of years, we're going to see some really interesting, like, off the wall stuff coming into the musical theater world, because people have had all this time to work on it. And as sad as it is to say, like, a lot of the shows are going to be closing, so there's going to be a lot of open spots, and I'm really hoping that some new stuff comes out and fills those slots.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it will, because this isn't on a musical theater note, this is more arts in general. Like, the things that I'm seeing coming out now, as like people are producing more work, and they're like, oh, it's the pandemic's ending, so like we can actually put new TV shows up, and we can make new movies. It's really cool to like see all this new work that I haven't even thought of. Like, part of me is like kind of getting my hand in TV just because I wish I could write a TV show. So I think I'm like giving myself a passion project to like write a TV show. But like seeing some of these cool TV shows that are coming out, like things that are like more fantastical on Netflix, and then like, I don't know, like I feel like there's a lot of room now for these new shows, because there has to be, you were saying, like, I think the typical gatekeepers, to talk about them, of the arts in general, are like, listen, if 2020 taught us anything, we should probably open our arms a little bit more to like all the people who can create amazing work, not just like the people who who obviously should have as much opportunity as everybody else, but like those people in those marginalized groups who have this amazing talent, who just are getting shut down with all these amazing new ideas, and you let them in the door, then you get this dope stuff, right? You get all this amazing stuff. And so I think it's almost inevitable, I feel like, because I'm seeing it in television, and I'm like, okay, if it's happening there, it has to happen in musical theater. I know musical theater is kind of old, but it has to happen.
Yeah, I always feel like musical theater is like 10 to 15 years behind the times.
Yeah.
But here's hoping that it took this last year to like catch up a little bit,
Yeah, exactly. I always feel like musical theater is King George in Hamilton. And then like every other writer and artist is everyone else in Hamilton. Just being like, we need to just do our own thing, man. And he's
do
like,
new stuff.
He's like, okay, well, you can't do it here. Like, it's like, I'm just like, yo, come on. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think like that's something Alan and I talked a lot about for Saving Legacy. We were like, we actually want to write a musical whose music sounds like stuff that is coming out today, like like on Spotify, and obviously it still sounds sort of musical theater. There's those elements, but I think we did a pretty cool job of making a modern sounding soundtrack, and a big part of that is the folks that we had working on the music. Like they really Mitch kicked butt, and Dan obviously did an incredible job, as he always does. So
yes, and I was gonna say I remember practicing the song, and these songs get stuck in my head. I can't help it. I think I was singing which one? That's what I was made for. Like, that's been stuck in my head, I'm pretty sure, since I recorded it. Like, it hasn't actually left. It just like gets in the back of my brain and then comes back, and it's like, you remember?
Love that.
But it's songs like that I fell in love with, because the beginning of that song, like the rap of that song, it reminded me of an artist I really like, named Kyle. He is one of my
Kyle the
favorite-
rapper?
Yes, the rapper.
Love
He's one of
him.
my favorite artists. I'm not gonna lie. He's in. I have this jar. I know this is a podcast, it's not a video, but I have this jar. It's a
Uh-huh.
mason jar, and it has all these artists in them.
Huh.
And I'm like pulling artists, and Kyle's still in there. And every time I pull an artist, I listen to all their work in its entirety for 2 weeks straight.
Ooh,
So
that's a cool idea.
yeah, so I gotta get to Kyle. He's in there somewhere. I don't remember what color piece of paper he is, but yeah, his music is so good to me. And the minute I started recording the rap for what I was made for, I was like, oh, this is Kyle. Okay. This is the thing that I want to hear on a stage. Like, this is the thing that I think should exist in the world, in musical theater in general. Like, it feels new. Well, okay, it's gonna feel new to literally everybody. But for me, it felt so familiar and it felt so at home. And I was like, yo, this is what I like about Saving Legacy, is like y'all taking stuff, like you said, stuff that you hear on Spotify, stuff that like people like me can connect to. And then you like bring it up there, and it's like, no, this is just as valid in a musical theater piece.
I mean,
as anything.
that's why we wanted you for the role.
Yeah.
Truthfully, it was like I want someone who knows this music and
Yeah.
who sings it, like will just sing it to themselves and who like can connect with it, because
Yeah.
we very much felt like. We did a lot of research, like working on this show, and there was actually another musical that we had started writing that we ended up scrapping because we felt like that musical was much more straight up like hip hop based, and
Yeah.
we felt like we were not the people to write this show. Frankly, we were like, you know what? We, even with the amount of like research that we were doing and the all of the music that we were listening to, we felt like this would be better served if we had a collaborator who knows this music better than we do already.
Yes.
So we were like, okay, we scrapped this project. And then when we came up with Saving Legacy, a lot of the basis for these songs is trap and like emo rap. And a lot of that came out of the pop punk genre. And like Alan grew up listening to punk and pop punk. And a lot of those artists I had already been listening to a lot more. And so we felt like this was actually a genre that we understood a little better, but that still we were like, but then when we wrote it at one point, like forever ago in the process, because we were trying to make it as easy as possible, it was like, well, maybe like I could just sing the lead role. But then when we actually finished the songs, I was like, nah, man, I do not have the voice for this. Like, I'm not going to sound natural doing it, which is why we wanted somebody who actually connected with connected with the material, knew these songs and this style of music. And I'm very, very grateful that we had you.
No, yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, this style of music is most of the music I listen to. I'm glad. First of all, yeah, I think even if you got a collaborator to write a hip hop musical, it would have been amazing, right? I'm glad that I was not the lead of that musical, because yo, I'm not like, if I comparatively am going like, oh, Kyle and Chance the Rapper, I can do that. Tupac and 50 Cent, that's like not me. In no way, shape, or form is that me. I've tried. No. It's very funny. It's to listen to me try and rap like they do. It's like watching a baby try to make a sandwich. It's hilarious. It's not. You're like, you know it can't. You know the baby can't do it. So you're like, it's okay. Keep going.
It's kind of cute to watch him try. Though,
exactly.
Right?
That's me rapping. That's the image.
That's really funny. Well, I mean, I would say you did a kick-ass job with the stuff that was in this show. Like, I think you sounded perfect on it. Well, listen, I feel like I could sit here and talk to you for like hours. And maybe there will be an extended version of this podcast up on our Patreon where we do just talk forever. But let me know as we sort of wrap up here. I just please let our audience know like where they can find you. What are them socials? Is there anything you wanna hype right now that you're doing? Anything like that? The floor is yours.
Yeah. So you could definitely find me at taylorfagans.com. My socials are my full name, Taylor Fagans, on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. No Twitter because I canceled it because it got hacked.
No.
Don't even try and look me up. I literally renamed the name, not Taylor Fagans, but it's me. I just don't use it. But yeah, you can follow me on those platforms, and I am currently like working on more. Like I said, I'm working on a TV show right now. I'm working on more plays. The play A Song just got shot out to a bunch of theaters, so keep your eyes peeled because that play might be produced again.
That's amazing.
It's a play that's done virtually and live, like at the same time on stage, I mean. So yeah, like keep your eyes out for that. And that's pretty much it. Oh yeah, and you know, I love a million musicals, so keep your ears peeled for Taylor Fagans being back, baby.
And you most certainly will be back.
Yeah.
Taylor, thank you so much. I had just an absolute blast with this. And like I just said, we will absolutely have you back for another episode. There's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah. Thank you.
Alrighty, well, I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, talk to you soon. Bye.
Hello, fabulous audience members, you beautiful people, you. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. It's me, Jacob. You just heard me talk. Probably too much, I would guess. Anyway, hey, listen, if you want to help us out, the best way you can do so is to leave us a rating and a review on your podcast platform of choice. And if you want to go that extra mile, you can share this episode on your social media and maybe tell your friends about this cool podcast that you like very much. That sort of stuff really, really, really helps us. We want to get this podcast to as many listeners as we can, and you can help us do that. So, thanks if you decide to. And if you don't decide to, no hard feelings. You can still listen. It's free. Anyway, I'll talk to you next week. Have a lovely life. Goodbye.
I'm Kate Thompson.
And I'm Mark David Christensen. And together we host Crap, a Hellboy podcast.
The show dedicated to the half-demon hero brought forth by writer-artist Mike Mignola and published by Dark Horse Comics.
Each week we discuss everything Hellboy.
Plus his expanded universe with the BPRD, Abe Sapien, Lobster Johnson, and many more.
That's Crap, a Hellboy podcast on Campfire Media or wherever you get your podcasts.
Campfire.